Now, I brought in my drawings from last week, and what I did was I added in an extra drawing in between each one. Because later on I'm going to show you a variation where, as you remember last week, we did everything on 2s, and then we shot some of the stuff on 1s, and then we played around with the timing a little bit. We shot it on 3s. So this time what I did was I brought all the drawings on basically one drawing in between each one. So I've got, instead of 11, I've got 22 drawings all total. And so what I'll do is I'll shoot this all on 1s, and you'll see the difference visually of how it looks so much smoother once you've filled it all in. As I mentioned earlier in the first class, we can still get away with stuff on 2s. And 1s, when you go to the 1s version, what it ends up doing is it just gives you a creamier, smoother version of what you originally had. So when you're thinking in terms of whether or not you're going to go to 1s or 2s, it's an issue of how much time is it going to take you, or if you're dealing with other people and you're actually working on a project where you've got money involved, it's going to cost you twice the amount of money because you're having to pay people twice as much money to do double the number of drawings. So you have to sort of weigh these factors out. There are certain circumstances where you have no choice, such as in a film like Roger Rabbit, where you're matching stuff up to live action. Because the live action is all shot on 1s, you have to match the animation to it at the exact same time, otherwise it strobes. So there's an instance where your hands are sort of tied whenever you're blending stuff together like that. But under normal circumstances, we can get away with 2s and a combination of 1s and 2s depending on the type of action that's taking place. And as we go through the semester with more and more assignments, I'll give you other examples of where you can play with your timing in order to speed things up, or instances where you are not necessarily speeding something up, but you're filling in the blank space in between the movements in order to make it clear as to what's going on. And so that deals not necessarily with time as far as seconds go, but it has to do with time from a distance point of view. So if, let's say in our instance here, we have our ball up here and we had the ball down at the bottom here, and we did want it to drop very, very quickly, so that essentially we want it to take 4 frames. So it's 2 frames here and 2 frames down at the bottom. But without that missing drawing in between, it'll appear as though this drawing just disappears and this one reappears over here. So it's more of a instantaneous pop as opposed to a movement. So that's where we would have to fill in the blank space with something to actually move it from that one position to the other, and then shoot it on 1s. So what we're going to talk about today is the idea of overlapping action. And in order to do that, there are 2 different types of overlapping action. And we'll deal with the first one in today's class, and then the second one we'll deal with next week. Overlapping action, from its simplest definition, is basically that not everything happens at the same time. It means that different things will take place at different points in time through the action that's taking place. And so with this, what we're going to do is we're going to add a second ball on top of this one here, and as this ball drops, we'll have this one react slightly after this one here, and so it'll cause it to have a different type of an action to it. So I'm just going to separate out my drawings here because I don't want to have to in between everything on 1s. So just give me 1 second. This will give the other people time to get back as well. The other thing I want to mention to you guys, just as we're waiting, is that how many people have been looking at the videos online? Anybody been recapping on those? I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm tending to take the other classes video simply because there are times when I do the lecture, usually what I'll do is I'll go through the standard formula or script that I have in my head of how I'm going to do the assignment. And then when I go around to the second one, something might pop into my head that's slightly different, or maybe explains it a little bit better. So I'll tend to take whichever lecture turns out better. So in the last two instances, the other lectures have turned out slightly better. What I'm going to do with this one, because they will end up essentially having the exact same information in them, I'm going to change something between the two of them. So I'm going to show you one instance or one example in this class, and then I'm going to show a different type of an example in the other class, and then put the two of them together so that you'll be able to see both examples at the same time. So even though you're not in the lecture in tomorrow's class, you'll be able to catch up on the information that they've got as well. So I'm just going to do a different variation of it. It's the exact same principle, it's just a different way of applying it. So I'll do it one way in your class, I'll do it a different way in the other class. All right, so you should have all your drawings there, and I want you to take drawing number 1. And well, actually, before we begin, let's just flip through the drawings one more time, just so we get a sense. And remember how we did the stack flip, where we take the drawings, stack them up so they're all nice and even, and then we take and we bend the drawings back and spread them out so that we get this fanning type of effect. And that way you can hold the drawings like this and then drop them down to see the action taking place. So I've cleaned up my drawings from last week, but they're a lot tighter, but they're essentially in the exact same position and doing all the same stuff that I had done before. They're just cleaner. And so what we're going to do is we're going to add a secondary ball onto the top of this one here. It's going to be slightly smaller, and as the first ball drops, we're going to overlap the action, which, as I mentioned before, means that not everything happens at the same time. So it essentially means that we're going to delay the action of the second ball by however many drawings we want to. In some cases you can do it by 1 drawing, sometimes you can do it by 2, sometimes you can do it by 3. It just depends on how much of a delay you want it to have and the type of action that's taking place. Now, one of the things about this action is that the ball is starting up in the high point here, where essentially it's static, but it's not static. This is the high point where the ball reaches its highest point and then it reverses and comes back down. So it doesn't actually stop, it just changes direction here. So this high point here is essentially a static position. And then the ball begins to move as it drops down, building up speed until we reach drawing number 5, which is its maximum rate of acceleration. It's not going to go any faster than this. And then it touches the ground and impacts, squishes, and then recovers, and then comes back up to its high point. So when we're doing overlapping action, if I was to take drawing number 1 and say draw a ball on the top here in the position that it should be in as it's moving through its animation, you have to ask yourself, well, what's it actually doing? So number 1 is the high point. It's just finished coming up, and now it's going to reverse and drop back down again. So what would be the position of the ball on the top? The answer is it depends. It depends on how you want the top ball to act. But there is no absolute answer for this. We can't definitively say the ball should look like whatever. We don't really know. So what we do need to find out is what is the absolute action that we can definitively say, I know exactly what the ball is going to be doing in this position. Does anybody know what that position would be? Which drawing? No? Not even a guess? Yep.
1 and 7.
No, it's not 1, because again, it's just reached its high point. We're not quite sure. 7, yes, we could say number 7 pretty definitively, that when it squishes down into the bottom, most likely the ball would be in a stretched out position. But there's a couple of drawings before that that we can say for sure we know exactly what it's going to be, and that's drawing number 5. As it reaches its maximum speed, we know for certain that on drawing number 5 the ball is going to be stretched out on this one here. So what we'll do is we'll just take our drawings, put them off to the side, and take out your drawing number 5. So this is when the ball has reached its maximum speed and it's dropping. So So the ball that would be attached on top of this one would be stretched out. So what I want you to do is I want you to draw another ball, and you can overlap it if you want to, just to show a little bit of three-dimensional drawing to it. But place the ball on here and stretch it out and make it just slightly smaller. So it's almost like a snowman type thing. So we're going to place that ball right on top of that one like that. Now don't forget, the ball is going from the top, it's dropping and it's reaching its maximum speed right here, so therefore the ball that's attached to it, reacting to the ball dropping, would have a pull to it. Now we can alter this any way we want, depending on the type of an effect that we want. If we want to make it more cartoony, what we can do is we can stretch this up even higher. Once we get looped through this and get back up to the high point, we can determine what's the high point of the ball and what's its position going to be, and then we can determine, okay, how are we going to have this react to it coming down. So let's say at the high point when the other ball is up here, and let's say the other ball is almost a circle, maybe it's just a little bit squished, then as it begins to drop and pull, what we could do is we could pretend that at the high point here of the ball, the second ball, it's actually stuck. We could put a pin in it and hold it in place, and it drops down. So we get that visual effect of the coyote and Roadrunner. You all remember the cartoon when the coyote runs off onto the cliff and he's holding there, and then he realizes, as soon as he realizes that he's in midair and that there's nothing underneath him, that's when gravity takes over. So he just holds there, holds there, holds there, and then finally gravity takes over, he gets pulled down. And in some cases it'd be his bottom goes down first, then his chest, and then his head, and then that sign, you know, help, usually twirls and drops down after him. So that's the idea of sticking that pin in his head and making it drop down. If you watch the video from last year of the double ball bounce, I'll have actually cut in some examples of the Coyote Roadrunner, the various dropping ones. It was difficult to try and find it because you'd think, wow, that happened in every single last Coyote and Roadrunner cartoon, when in actual fact it didn't happen in every single last one. There was actually only a couple that it happened in. So in this drawing here, we want to show this pulling, but like I said, we can alter it and change it later on if we want to. So our next drawing now, as the ball drops, is going to be drawing number 6. So let's find our number 6 drawing. And this is the drawing where the ball is just about to, or it's just touched the ground, but it hasn't compressed at all. So it's in its exact same state. So now this one, what we could do if we wanted to is we could replicate the exact same stretch position on the top ball just by shifting it over, and you can simply trace off the exact same position of it. But then you have to ask yourself, and again, this is where for yourselves as animators, you have to think about what it is that you're going to be animating and how you want it to act. So what I'm saying from this, by keeping it at the exact same size, is that this secondary ball that's on here has reached its maximum stretch. It can't stretch any further. It's like for all of us, we have a certain amount of flexibility within our body, and you can stretch your arms out on either side, and you can have someone on either side of you holding onto your hands, and they can pull and you can get a little bit more stretch, and you know, if they pull too hard, they can pull your arms right out of their sockets, and then you get a maximum amount of stretch. But there's a certain amount of flexibility there within your joints that you have to pop a little bit further. And so this is the same idea that we want to sort of get here. This popping action, I should just sort of talk a little bit about this. There are various places where you can put this into your animation. In your neck is a good place. Like if you're thinking about the way you react to the way someone talks, you can always stretch your head up a little bit further and drop your shoulders down, right? So that action between your shoulder and the top of your head, by just doing this, you can get an elongated feel. It's a stretching position. Or we can scrunch up our shoulders down like this and get more of a squashed position. So that's where your stretch and squash principle comes into play. It's not necessarily in the shape where you can put it in a cartoon character, because as we all know, our heads are solid. You know, they've got the cranial mass in there that you can't really compress easily, or you can't stretch it either, but you can elongate your neck. And the same thing is true with your mouth and your jaw. The distance between the top of your head and your jaw, you can stretch that out by opening up your mouth, right? So if everybody does that right now, open up your mouth to a normal, comfortable distance, and then if you open it up even further, Feel that pop in your jawbone at the side when you go too far? Oh. There's that little popping. That's where your jaw actually slides out of its slot on the inside there. Luckily it's held by the skin and the muscles and all that junk. But that's an example of going a little bit further than what you normally would. So in this instance here, just for the sake of trying it out, we've traced off the original one that we did there. Let's just stretch it out a little bit further, okay? So take it from the same connection point here. We don't want to stretch that because that's the physical connection between the two balls. But what we can do is we can stretch this a little bit further. And here's where we start to get into the cartoony effect. Now by doing this, what we're doing is we're actually defying our rule of volume and proportion. By stretching it out, if we don't compress it this way, we're actually adding more volume into it. But it's also covering a space. And so we don't want to get it too thin to the point where it disappears. But now when you flip those two drawings, can you see the pull that's being created between the two of them? It feels like there's more of a stretch to it because physically the top ball has actually stretched a little bit more. So it has that little bit of a pull, yank down to it, which is the example that I gave you last week on the single ball bounce, when on the down position, instead of doing this position here where the ball is circular, we stretched it out. And it tended to have more of a pull to it on the downward action. So by altering this in a number of different ways, I could stretch it so that it was almost all the way up here. It would hang longer and have more of a feel to it. And then when it gets down to the bottom, it would snap and have more of a hard compression feel to it. So now when we go to drawing number 7, which is our squished position, we don't want to have the second ball, the one that's stretched on this one here, compress at the same time. Because overlapping action is not everything happens at the same time. So if we have the top ball compress on the bottom ball, that means it's not overlapping anymore. It's now happening simultaneously. So we want to overlap the action by having a delay. So in this instance here, what we could do is we could start to press this part here, flatten this part of the ball out a little bit more. And I don't know if you remember from the video the suction cup version that I did, where I made it slip onto the bottom, sort of like a plunger. If we use that type of an effect here, where we compress this part, put a little wrinkle on it, but then keep the upper part here still stretched out.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry? There we go. So now what's happening is as the ball comes in and contacts, it's reacting to this portion here, but it's not a full compression the way this compression is. So this also gives it a little bit of a three-dimensional feel to the shape of the ball here. We put a little bit of a roundness on it. If I just draw a little cross contour on here, it makes it feel like it's actually bulging out, and this is actually on the top surface forcing it down. So it's cause and effect. Then when we go to number 8, the ball is shooting back up in the opposite direction. And this is going to be a very fast action. So there's a number of different ways that we can approach this. If the ball is shooting up that hard, depending on the pliability of the upper ball, we could have it compress over top of the head of it, like this, and pull on it. Now, if we go to this type of an effect here, where it's got this type of a feel to it, this ring that's around here, like the suction cup, if we do that on this one here, then what'll end up happening is it'll feel like this bottom part, this flattened out part here, isn't pulling as much. And so we're going to create a little bit of an optical illusion here that doesn't follow with the theory of what's going on. If the top ball is like this and the bottom ball is like this, when it goes up and presses into it, it's actually going to cover over top of it like this, right? And it would do so symmetrically all the way around. So what we don't want to do is make it feel like it's being suctioned onto it. So we're going to create a jelly bean look where we do this. And what this effect will do is the bottom ball is pushing up in this direction. And so the force of that pressure, you can see right on my ball, is causing this part here to push up as well, while the two outer edges are being pulled down on either side. So it has a feeling like it's pushing in the center, but pulling and resisting on the two outsides. So although from a purely realistic point of view, this would not happen, we want to create that illusion by doing it. So it just creates more of a force to it. Now this is where it might be nice to have that halfway in between drawing between the two of them, just to fill in that gap, because that's a big jump between here and here. So I don't know if you did it. I did it when I shot this stuff on ones, or drew it all on ones. I put in a 7A, which has the ball coming up off the ground from here, half the distance, and it recovers back to a circle, and then it turns into a stretch position. So this one I could shoot it on ones, just to fill in that blank. Because again, here's an instance where you've got quite a violent movement. And especially when, in this drawing here, we have the oval going in this direction here, the pull coming down, and then we go to this drawing here, it could be misconstrued that those two are replacing each other. That the ball is still in an oval position, and then somehow are reversed. So visually it's going to create a little bit of a weird look to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this halfway drawing as a bridge between that to fill in the gap to explain what exactly is going on. So going from this one here where it's being pulled down, it's now on its way back up again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the distance of the compression. You can see the distance between the top of this ball and the top inner part of this ball here. I'm going to make it a little bit thicker here, so it's not compressing on it quite so much, but give it that same jelly bean like feel. But again, don't push this part here quite as much. So now by doing this, it creates the feel that there's more pressure here from this drawing to this drawing here. See that change in direction there is pulling it, and it's pushing down on the top of the other ball. So a lot of this is just theoretical cause and effect. If I do this to the ball, what is it going to look like? Right? Which is what animation is all about. You just think through what the action is and what would happen if it touched another surface or affected another character or another object. How would it react? I'm just going to put these in proper order: 7, 7A, and then my number 8. And now we go to number 9, which is now my recovery back up to my high point here. So here's where I want A. In my original drawing, I went from the severe oval here where it's stretching, and now it's recovering back into its circular shape, so it's slowly coming back to a round. I want to do basically the same type of thing here with the top ball, in that I want it to also recover back up to a circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to lengthen the distance between this compression point here and here, which eventually I'm going to erase that line because I want it to look not transparent. Looks like a jellyfish there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and pull the top ball off here. And start to flatten this part here. So again, what's happening is this first ball that I drew, this is the concave part that's actually pressing up inside the circle of this one here, but we're not going to see that because we're eventually going to erase this line here. But it's the idea that it's pushing up inside of it. And then as we go to number 10, we're going to get that ball to recover up even a little bit further, and it's going to go back to its circular shape again. So here's where we do the roll flip, where you take a drawing and put it in between each of your fingers like this, and we can roll flip like this to see the action moving in sequence. Because what we're doing here is basically we're doing what's called straight ahead animation. We're not doing any in-betweens. We're just going from drawing number 5 to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then back to 1 again. So we're doing them sequentially. So in order to see the action, you can just scroll or roll flip them like that and see the movement of the ball taking place.